In 1844, Charles Darwin sat alone in his study and wrote a letter to his wife. It wasn't a love letter. It was a confession. He told her that if he died suddenly, she must publish a secret manuscript hidden inside his desk. Then he wrote a sentence that would haunt history. He described writing that book as confessing a murder. Darwin wasn't a criminal. He was a man who had discovered a truth so dangerous. He believed it could destroy the world he lived in. So for 20 years he locked that idea away, while his hair slowly turned white, and the weight of the secret began to consume him. Tonight we step into the silent, anxious world of a man who changed everything, and was terrified of what he had done. This is the psychological struggle of Charles Darwin. Before the controversy, before the debates, before the book that would shake the scientific world, Darwin was supposed to live a quiet life. His father wanted him to become a doctor. But 19th century medicine was brutal. Operations were performed without anesthesia. Patients screamed. Blood covered the floor. Darwin watched one surgery and walked out. He never returned. Medicine was not his future, so his family tried another path, the church. Darwin was sent to Cambridge to become a clergyman. At the time, this was perfectly normal. Many naturalists were also priests. Studying nature was seen as a way to admire God's creation, and Darwin loved nature. He collected beetles obsessively, walked through forests for hours, studied plants like tiny puzzles waiting to be solved. To him, nature looked like a masterpiece, ordered, balanced, perfect. So when Darwin boarded the HMS Beagle in 1831, he wasn't trying to challenge faith. He believed the voyage would reveal even more evidence of divine design. But the world he encountered on that journey would slowly begin to unravel that belief. The most important clues appeared thousands of miles from England, on a harsh volcanic chain known as the Galapagos Islands. Black rock, dry winds, lonely creatures surviving in isolation. At first, Darwin simply collected specimens, birds, reptiles, plants, but slowly he began to notice something strange. Birds that looked almost identical, yet had completely different beaks. Some were thick and powerful, perfect for crushing seeds. Others were thin and sharp, perfect for catching insects. Each island had its own version. At first it seemed like a tiny detail, the kind of thing most people would ignore. But Darwin didn't ignore details, he obsessed over them. And one quiet thought began to disturb him. If species were created perfectly from the beginning, why would the same bird need different tools on different islands? Why would creation require modification? The more Darwin looked, the stranger nature became. Life was not peaceful. It was competitive, harsh, unforgiving. Animals struggled for food, for space, for survival. And slowly, an unsettling possibility emerged. What if species were not fixed at all? What if they changed? When Darwin returned to England in 1836, he brought home boxes of notebooks, thousands of observations, specimens from across the world. For months he worked in silence, studying, comparing, questioning, and then the pieces began to connect. Small differences between animals could accumulate over generations. Nature didn't need to design every creature perfectly. Instead, the environment quietly decided who survived. Those best suited to their surroundings lived long enough to reproduce. Those that failed disappeared. Darwin called this process natural selection. It was an elegant explanation for the patterns he had observed across the globe. But the implications were terrifying, because if animals evolved, then humans might have evolved too. And that idea struck at the very center of Victorian belief. For centuries, people believed humanity stood at the center of creation, unique, special, divinely placed. But if Darwin was right, humans were not the center of life. We were just another branch on a vast and ancient tree, and that realization shook him, because Darwin knew something immediately. If he published this theory, it would ignite a storm. So Darwin waited. 1 year passed, then 5, then 10, eventually 20. During those years, Darwin lived quietly in the countryside, running experiments, breeding pigeons, studying plants, observing earthworms. Page after page of evidence filled his notebooks. But science was only part of the reason for his silence. Inside his own home lived another conflict. Darwin's wife, Emma Darwin, was deeply religious. She believed in heaven, in eternal souls, in a universe guided by a loving creator. Darwin loved her deeply, and he feared something painful. If his theory was true, it might destroy beliefs that meant everything to her. To the public, Darwin feared controversy, but privately, he feared breaking the heart of the person he loved most. So the most disruptive idea in modern science remained hidden, locked inside drawers, buried inside notebooks, waiting. Then in 1858, everything changed. Darwin received a letter. The sender was a naturalist working in Southeast Asia, Alfred Russel Wallace. Inside the envelope was a manuscript. Darwin began reading, and with every paragraph, his heart sank. Wallace had reached the same conclusion: evolution through natural selection. After 20 years of hesitation, someone else had discovered the same truth. Darwin now faced a choice: remain silent and watch history pass him by, or finally reveal the theory he had hidden for decades. He chose to act. In 1859, Darwin published On the Origin of Species. The reaction was immediate. Some scientists were fascinated. Others were outraged. Religious leaders condemned the idea. Newspapers debated it everywhere. The first edition sold out on the very first day. The storm Darwin had feared for 20 years had finally arrived, but he rarely stepped into the public spotlight. Instead, Darwin stayed home, quiet, private, watching the world argue about the idea he once hid in a drawer. Today, evolution stands as one of the foundations of modern biology, but the story behind it is deeply human. Darwin wasn't just a scientist. He was a man carrying the weight of a dangerous idea, a man who spent 20 years wondering if the world was ready to hear it. And maybe that's why his story still resonates today, because somewhere in our lives, we all carry truths we're afraid to reveal, ideas that could change everything. But the truth has its own timing, and eventually, it refuses to stay hidden. If you enjoy exploring the hidden psychology behind history, subscribe, because history isn't just about discoveries. It's about the human minds brave enough or frightened enough to reveal them. I'll see you in the next shadow.